You guys already know what time it is. The Zenless Zone Zero 1.7 live stream just concluded and we got loads of new information on our upcoming limited agents, Vivian and Hugo. These will be our final agents before we move into 2.0, and it's looking like the dev team knows this because they are making sure these units end off season 1 with a bang. So like always, in this video we're going to be breaking down both Vivian and Hugo's kits, going over the key pieces that you need to properly utilize these units, as well as even brainstorming some effective team comps. I'm also going to be providing you guys my reasons on why I'm going for Hugo, but maybe why you shouldn't. To start, I'm going to cheat and go over the agent that I'm most excited for first, my man Hugo. Hugo is our new S-Rank Ice Attack agent who wields a briefcase that transforms into a badass scythe that shoots lasers. His core gimmick is through his core passive, Terminating Verdict, which increases his crit rate and crit damage after using a chain attack or stunning an enemy. This is actually the first time that we've had a DPS who deliberately wants to trigger stun on an enemy. Normally you will want one of your other units to do it, but Hugo loves to do it himself to grant a massive buff to his crit values. His passive then states that when his EX special attack or ultimate hits a stun enemy, it triggers a new effect known as Totalize. This is an effect unique to Hugo and it increases his attack damage based on the remaining stun duration. Once Totalize is triggered, the enemy immediately recovers from stun and accumulates a certain amount of days. So Hugo is an attack unit that is able to manipulate stun windows to his liking while being able to massively contribute to days build? What kind of DPS is this? They also use very specific wording in this description to let us know there's some flexibility to his kit. For instance, they state that the attack buff he receives from Totalize is affected on how much time is left in the stun duration. What this tells me is that Hugo more than likely wants to end stun windows as fast as he can, but when optimizing team play, how early you end stun could vary. Lastly, with his core passive, they mentioned that when his EX special attack hits an enemy that isn't stunned, the accumulated days inflicted by the skill increases and Hugo's attack increases based on the number of stun agents in the team. They're basically already giving us a hint here with how his rotations could potentially go. If you have the energy available, it seems you want to use his EX special outside of the stun window so that when you use it again when the enemy is stunned or trigger his ultimate, they'll immediately recover, take the massive amount of damage, but also build even more days, potentially allowing us to trigger another stun in a matter of seconds. Look, I was already hyped for this unit because of his aura alone, but man does his kit sound like the most exciting thing I've seen from any attacker in the game right now. He's also able to single-handedly make dual stun comps viable because the more stun units he has on his team, the more damage he does. This is exactly why they had him paired with Lycan and Lighter during the stream, and it's also why they're cooking all of you for skipping Lighter by making them run together on the same banner. But not me though, I got my Lighter months ago. Enough of Hugo's core passive though. Let's actually get into what he can do. First up, we have his basic attack, Dark Abyss Concerto, which is a unique attack that allows Hugo to throw his scythe and follow up with a range attack. This skill is triggered after he uses basic attack Dark Abyss Quartet, a dodge counter, or quick assist, and he's able to charge the range attack by holding the basic attack input to deal more damage. This is a skill that I imagine will be used a lot throughout his gameplay as it allows him to deal a bit more damage in his rotations. I hope we're able to easily quick swap out of this animation as well when performing it so we can double down on his effectiveness in his kit. Next, we have his monstrous EX special attack we mentioned before, Soul Hunter Punishment. This is a large scythe attack that shoots out a fierce wall of ice, dealing massive damage. This move actually reminds me of the huge ice attack Todoroki performed against Deku during the sports festival in MHA, which was fire by the way. But like we mentioned before, this move is really good due to it applying the Totalize effect. So not only are we getting good damage from this, but it also helps build incredible days for Hugo's team. Definitely one of the primary skills we're going to be using in his kit. Next, we have his additional ability Prelude to Finality, which is activated when Hugo has a stun or support unit on his team. This skill increases his chain attack damage and the buff that Totalize grants. A very simple skill as it's just a damage increase for him. Overall, Hugo is looking like a monster on field. He's a unit that seems like he wants to heavily focus on stun windows, but the upside for him is that because of his kit, triggering stun windows might be the fastest and easiest thing in the world for him. From what I'm seeing, Hugo is going to have his stunners run the show until he has energy available. Once the energy is loaded, he can quickly come on field to unleash his EX special, then swap back to his stunners to trigger Daze. Once the stun window is active, this will allow him to do a short rotation and either cash out with his EX special or ultimate blasphemy to trigger the totalized effect, dealing massive amounts of damage while building a considerable amount of Daze. Hugo for the most part sounds pretty straightforward, but similar to Evelyn, he has some unique tricks up his sleeves that allow him to manipulate a core system to provide himself an advantage. Because of this, I feel like Hugo will have some very unique teams to play around with, and that sounds super exciting to me. To throw out some cool ones I have in mind, he could potentially do Lycan Lighter Hugo like we saw on the live stream, Yanagi Trigger Hugo, and one of the ones I'm looking forward to the most, Evelyn Lighter Hugo. Of course, he'll have a lot more traditional team structures as well, but you guys know me, I love pushing the envelope with the team building in this game, so I'm excited to see what Hugo really brings to the table. Now, the reason I'm focusing more on Hugo than Vivian is because currently my account is primarily invested into bringing up attack units. Attackers are one of my favorite DPSs in the game, as I think their kits are a lot more interesting than the anomaly units personally. I also just like his overall aesthetic, making him potentially my favorite character in the game right now, but Soldier 11 is definitely still fighting for that #1 spot. He's not a unit that I need at all, and if you guys have been here since 1.4, you don't need him either because you have Miyabi. So if we take that into account, Hugo might not be the smartest play for any of us to make because his overall value isn't that high due to us having a Void Hunter as an amazing ice option. Honestly, the only reason to grab Hugo is if you like the character, which is fine, but if you're someone that's looking for a unit that holds a lot of value, Vivian's looking like the better choice for you. Before we get into that better choice though, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. All of the support goes a long way, and if you haven't yet, be sure to join the Discord and join the Soul Society family. We're trying to get it more active and make a great chill out spot for everyone that loves Zenless and just gaming in general. But I don't want to hold you guys up any longer. Let's get back into the video. Vivian is our first S-Rank Ether Anomaly unit that utilizes a unique resource known as Flight Feathers. This unique resource is what allows Vivian to perform her Mary Poppins-like flight attacks when she enters her Fluttering Frog state. Now, how we enter this state is through her basic attack Noblewoman Waltz, which allows Vivian to perform a rush attack dealing ether damage and recovering Flight Feathers upon hit. She's also able to enter this state with her EX special attack Violent Requiem, which deals massive ether damage and recovers Flight Feathers as well. This is where Vivian's core gimmick comes into play, because when in her fluttering state, Vivian is able to perform her new basic attacks that charges her forward in the air, launching an AoE attack consuming all Flight Feathers in exchange for a new resource known as Guard Feathers. I know it sounds like a lot, but stay with me. Guard Feathers is pretty much the same as the former resource, but instead it allows Vivian to perform similar basic attacks off field. This is massive because finally we have another DPS unit that provides off field damage similar to Bernice. This will not only make anomaly units team stronger, but potentially even teams with some attackers as well. Speaking of anomaly, Vivian's core passive Dirge of Destiny states that whenever an enemy is under an anomaly effect, Vivian's Feather Bloom, the big flower that appears during her basic attack, will trigger an extra instance of anomaly damage based on the attribute anomaly afflicted. To me, this sounds like that the damage will vary depending on the other attribute on your team, meaning that some elements will pair better with Vivian than others. I don't know how I feel about this. This potentially could leave a sour taste in my mouth depending how they go about this, but I guess I'll just have to wait and see what the damage differences are once we get our hands on the character. To bring it back to her passive though, when Feather Bloom hits an enemy, they will also be inflicted with Vivian's Prophecy. This effect causes ether damage over time and triggers an attribute anomaly, making it exactly like Bernice's Afterburn effect. This is honestly all I needed to hear for me to understand how strong this character is. This is because if we take a look at a unit like Bernice right now, she is still considered one of the best DPSs in the game due to her being able to deal damage and apply her attribute anomaly while being completely off field. And now you're telling me we have an ether version of her that does the exact same thing and even more? Mind you, corruption tends to do more damage over time than burn. So there's no way Vivian isn't at worst a top 3 DPS unit in the game. What's even crazier is that this is amplified with her additional ability, Prophetic Tears. If Vivian has an anomaly or ether unit on her squad and they trigger an attribute anomaly, Vivian will consume Guard Feathers to launch a Feather Bloom against the enemy, increasing the corruption damage and disorder damage from corruptions for the whole team. We literally might have another T0 unit on our hands. Like, why are we increasing the damage on an attribute anomaly that already has really good damage? Finally, we have her ultimate, which basically does the same exact thing as her EX special, but it does more damage and recovers more flight feathers, which is the name of Vivian's game. Overall, Vivian is a pretty simple unit. She just has a lot of verbiage to digest, making her seem a lot more difficult than she is. Basically, when playing her, you can either perform basic attacks to generate flight feathers or immediately EX special to enter Flutter Frog state to build guard feathers. Once enough of these are built, you can switch off Vivian while in the fluttering state so that she can perform off-field attacks whenever other agents perform EX special attacks. You're throwing her ultimate once you're low on her feathers, and bam, you're good to go. This is why I said she's pretty similar to Bernice. You don't need much to get her going, but I will say she has more to offer in her kit that she could potentially be a bit more on field in comparison to Bernice, which is good. I think Vivian is a great unit for most players to pick up because her supportive nature grants her the ability to be placed in a lot more team comps than most characters and especially DPS units. She also just benefits from being an anomaly unit because this class grows stronger every time a new one is introduced. That's one of the main things that I love about this class, and because of that, it allows you to make teams like Vivian Yanagi Trigger, Vivian Asher Miyabi, and even Vivian Nicole Zhuyan. I'm just really excited to see the different combinations that people come up with for her team comps because the potential feels endless right now. This is honestly why I suggest Vivian over Hugo, because I believe it's much easier to invest into an anomaly unit like her who will be flexible enough to work on multiple teams instead of investing into a unit like Hugo where you have to build your teams more so around him. But either one are great options if you're willing to invest. But that's everything regarding Hugo and Vivian. These are some units that are bringing some very interesting playstyles to the game, and I think they're going to be some of the most satisfying units to play. I know a lot of you are considering skipping this patch entirely because 2.0 is around the corner, but I definitely suggest you guys to at least give these units a chance because you never know, they actually might surprise you with how fun and strong they are. If you do end up picking up either one of them, let me know in the comments below. Again, I'm leaning more into Hugo as I'm more invested into the attacker meta at this point, but I do understand that most players are probably a lot more invested into the anomaly meta due to the back-to-back run we had with banners for majority of 1.x. All in all, pick whoever you want, just make sure that you have the proper characters on your account to invest into strong teams for them. We're moving into 2.0, so there's no promises on how the meta is going to look in the next few months, so it's best to properly invest now while you still can. I appreciate you guys for your love and support. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Join the Discord if you haven't yet, and always believe in the you that believes in yourself. I'll see you guys in the next one.